I was barely awake after surgery when my neighbor, Hank, called me saying, "You'd better get home. A trench on my land." But the more the fog lifted, the more his words sank in. They'd actually done it. And not a small ditch either. Hank said it looked like someone was cutting a road for a miniature railroad. That was the moment my heart dropped. See, I've lived on this piece of land in rural Colorado for over 30 years. I know every rock, every tree, and every inch of the property line, because I'm the one who planted the markers myself. But ever since the HOA bought the neighboring development a few years back, they'd been breathing down my neck about access easements I never approved. They wanted to cut through my acreage to reach their new walking path, even though they already had a designated entrance. And I had told them more than once, no, absolutely not. But apparently no wasn't good enough. Especially when I wasn't home to defend myself. When I finally made it back after my follow-up appointment, still sore, still stitched, and still walking like someone had tightened my joints with a wrench, Hank wasn't kidding. Right across the western edge of my property, the HOA's contractor had dug a trench about 4 feet deep and hundreds of feet long. Bright orange stakes marked their so-called new access line. They didn't bother calling me, didn't bother asking, didn't even bother confirming they were on the right land. They just did what they wanted, assuming I'd be too old, too tired, or too out of it to push back. Big mistake. I asked their president, Linda Queen of the Clipboards, to explain herself. She strutted up with her sunglasses on like she owned the whole valley. "We're establishing an emergency maintenance corridor," she said. "It's already approved." "By who?" I asked. "The board," she replied, with the tone of someone announcing Moses had just delivered tablets. "Well, the board doesn't own my land," I reminded her. She smirked, tapped her folder, and said, "The trench stays." Then she walked off like she'd just declared victory. She didn't know it yet, but the game had just started. I spent that whole night sitting on my porch, drinking ginger tea because pain meds and bourbon don't mix, and thinking, and at around midnight, just when the coyotes started singing, I got an idea. A good one, a petty one, the kind of idea a man gets only after decades of dealing with entitled HOA busybodies who think a property line is a suggestion, not a boundary. First thing the next morning, I hired a local earthworks crew. Big machines, big tires, big attitude, real working folks, not HOA-approved clipboard consultants. When they arrived, the foreman, old cowboy named Rick, looked at that trench and let out a low whistle. "Sir," he said, "do you want us to fill it exactly back to land grade, or do you want something a little more persuasive?" I liked him immediately. We filled the trench exactly as it was at first. Packed the dirt nice and tight, smoothed it flat. Then came the persuasive part. Remember how the HOA wanted access across my western boundary? Well, thanks to their own trench, I now had a perfect template for a raised mound. Not a wall, just a long, smoothly shaped, 4-foot-high earth ridge running the exact same line. Beautiful, solid, and absolutely blocking any vehicle, golf cart, bicycle, or self-righteous morning stroller. When the HOA board came around for their inspection walk, they were speechless. It was glorious. I waited until they were all gathered there, pointing and whispering like pigeons fighting over stale bread, before stepping off my porch slowly, carefully, because surgery recovery is no joke in approaching. "Looks good, doesn't it?" I said. "You dug the line, so I followed it." Linda's jaw clenched so tight I thought she'd crack a tooth. "You can't block access to our walking path," she snapped. "Your walking path," I said, "is on your land. This ridge is on mine. And don't forget your trench is what defined it." She tried waving a stack of papers at me. I didn't even read them. I just said, "Call the county. They'll straighten it out." She did. Unfortunately for her, the county sided with the guy who didn't trespass, didn't dig, and didn't break any laws. The ridge stayed. And just to drive the point home, I placed thick native grass sod across the whole thing and planted a row of pines along the top. Nothing says permanent like trees. For the next couple of months, the HOA had to use their original entrance, the one they didn't want because it was too far from the parking lot. Their little plan of cutting through my land to make things convenient for themselves had completely backfired. The best part, every time someone asked why the big hill was there, the HOA had to admit they dug the original trench without permission, and word spread fast. Their reputation was toast. Then came the final payoff. A letter showed up at my door from the HOA's lawyer, except it wasn't a threat. It was practically an apology. A miscommunication, they called it, a misunderstanding. They asked if I'd consider allowing access after all, promising compensation and improved neighborly cooperation. I didn't even respond. Instead, I took a slow stroll, doctor-approved, up the ridge, looked over at the HOA development, and enjoyed the peace, the quiet, the freedom of knowing I'd stood my ground. You see, getting older doesn't mean getting weaker. It means getting smarter, calmer, and a whole lot less willing to put up with nonsense. And for everyone watching this who's had run-ins with HOAs, Noisy neighbors, or folks who think your property is their playground, you know exactly how satisfying that victory felt. Before you go, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe for more stories like this, and tell me where you're watching from. I love seeing all the states light up in the comments.